Great, so this is the last video before we make our first little mini app. In the previous video, we looked at how to add a couple of lines of Swift code to the viewcontroller.swift file. We added the line println hello world, which you'll remember when we ran the app, it just logged hello world down here in the log area. And then we dragged the label, we control clicked on our hello world label and dragged it in and gave it an IB outlet, which is a reference that allows us to do things with it, and we called it my label. And then down here we changed the text of my label to be it worked. So that was our first little bit of Swift code. But of course that's not that exciting because it's not interactive in any way. So in this video we're going to see how we can very easily adjust this bit of code so that instead of just changing it, the text to it worked as soon as the app is loaded, it actually leaves it as hello world but then changes the text when we click the button. That's what we want to be able to do. So as I mentioned, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to add a couple of empty lines to my code here, and then I'm going to do the same thing I did on the label, but this time on the button. So I'm going to control click and then drag over. I'll just do that again. Control click and drag here, and then I'm going to insert. This time, instead of inserting an outlet, I'm going to insert an action. Now an action allows us to respond to something that happens on this button. So you can see the default event here is touch up inside. So essentially that means that someone's pressed the button and then they've released their finger. So the touch is up. There's all sorts of other actions or events that we can use here. So touch cancel, touch down, touch drag, etc., etc. You can all imagine what most of those do, but we're focused on touch up inside. Essentially, that's the one that we use when we want to respond to a tap, which is probably the most common action that we'll want. So we'll call this button pressed. We don't need to worry too much about the object and the arguments for the moment. We'll look at those when we do these things in more detail later on in the course. So I'll just click and connect. And what that does, it creates a nice little function for us. You can see func is the Swift abbreviation for function. Again, I'm not going to worry too much about the rest of that code. All we have to worry about is we can put any code we like inside that function, and then that code will be run every time this button is tapped. So very simply, all I'm going to do is copy and paste my code from the last video, or cut and paste I should say, and I'm going to put it inside the function area. So last time we had it in the viewDidLoad method or function, which meant that the code was run as soon as the app was loaded. Now we've got it in the button pressed function. So that means the code will be run every time this button is tapped. And that's it. Simple as that. So now I'm just going to run my app. And let's see how it looks. There it is. So you can see that the text is still hello world. It hasn't changed. But when we tap our button, fantastic. Two things happen. We got our log of hello world down there, and the text of the label changed from hello world to it worked. And of course now I can, very excitingly, do that as many times as I like. I'll get a new log each time, but of course the label won't change because it's already been set to it worked. So that's how we run some code when a button is pressed. In then the next video, the last video of this course, we're going to create our first little app, which will be a nice little app that tells you how to age your cat.